Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Who Am I? Some fun film music by Alfred Schnittke. You can react to each part separately. This is a suite of movements titled Clowns und Kinder, which translates to clowns and children. We do have 9 minutes of music ahead of us across 5 movements. Each movement is about 1 to 2 minutes in length. The suite overall is fairly dynamic. Some songs are a little louder than others. I will probably not be doing any speaking during the songs. I will just address my thoughts in between the movements as we get into an analysis segment. So if you would like to raise your volume on your end during the musical parts, you're more than welcome to, without the fear of me being very loud above the music. Let's dive into the beginning here. This movement is 1 minute and 39 seconds long. It is called Title Music. All right. That was fun. That was very fun, very bouncy. I tried to indicate through my conducting that it's very sharp and intricate. It's very sharp and abrupt and very dexterous. There's nothing here that really holds a lot of notes out. We sometimes have some of that stuff on the lower end to kind of give a bit of a sort of a bulbous feeling at the bottom of this track. We did have trombones at the end with slides, kind of sliding down into a note. But that, to me, that's just, it adds to the fun element of all of this. But when we look at any of the higher pitch stuff, the bells, the violins, the flutes, any of the higher brass, I mean, it's very sharp and articulate, very short staccato notes. And it keeps a very brisk pace through all of this, particularly even in the second section when we had that tempo increase as well. And this brought with it a ton of double tonguing, particularly from the trumpet section. Getting that getting that really quick movement there, that really fast display of notes. And it is just very bouncy because of all the sharpness. But beyond that, there's also the drive of it all. This song doesn't really slow down much at all. We did have that third section where we dropped down to just the violins, I think, and the bells. And we kind of got away from the faster playing for something that was a bit more muted in energy. I believe that would be the tutti section, Tutti, of the track. just kind of brings the energy down a little bit so we can build back out of it. And we do that as well. Right after that, we bring back the introduction of the song with the buildup of that into the final like 2 or 3 seconds there just to wrap the song up. It just captures a very fun vibe. And I think that's the point of it. It kind of feels circusy in some ways. It feels like there's a lot of things going on, and I think it captures that general. What are they called? Circuses called big tops? Is that the colloquial term for them? Anyways, there's just so much spectacle going on, and it happens in such a frenzy of entertainment. And I think this song captures a lot of that. I don't know if they're necessarily going for a circusy vibe. I am looking at the titles here now. The next one is called Intermezzo, which I think is Italian for intermission. I gotta go check that out. But then we have translations for the next 3 movements, which are Acrobats, In Hospital, and Waltz. And the Acrobats, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe this is a circus thing. And then In Hospital, I'm not thinking that one's too positive though. I think actually right now I'm going to take a pause and I want to look into where this comes from. Because Who Am I mentioned that this was film score, but is it from a film called Clowns und Kinder? And if so, what's the tone of, you know what, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until we've heard the whole suite. And then I want to look into it, kind of see what the tone of the film is. Because right here, I mean, this is just a fun song. Is there something else I'm supposed to get out of it, though? The movement titles tell me that this isn't going to be fun for the rest of it, though. So let's move into this next one. This movement is called Intermezzo. All right. It seems like we're going to have these nice breaks between movements too, or at least both of these had like 5 seconds of silence between the movements. I like this. It retains a lot of the feeling of the first. Once again, we have the da 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 dum, da 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 dum. These short staccato notes. We're still kind of working with this dexterous bounciness. It's very articulate, very short, but it still captures a type of, again, fun. There is a lightheartedness to this intricate dance. And for whatever reason, I do kind of feel a dance to this, particularly ballet is what I see in my head while I'm listening to this. But I think part of that may just be the visual elements of the feet, which tend to be very straight up and down and move in very short, tight movements. And I think that the violin part really matches that from a musical standpoint. There's also a delicacy and perfection to the performance as well. It's the very sharp articulation to it. There's nothing in here that's muddy or has any room for interpretation. It's all very direct and sharp and requires a lot of patience in the practice in order to create this perfect performance. It's a lot of P words there, but it does evoke a feeling of perfection, of mastery that the last track doesn't, even despite using the same rhythmic language. The last one was very fun, lots of ideas going on, did a lot of work go into mastering the parts so that the performance would be perfect. Absolutely, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels fun, whereas this one feels reserved and intricate. I find that to be a really interesting division there, because it is, like I said, using that same rhythmic language, but in a very different way. And I think part of it also comes down to the lack of the larger than life element here. This is just a couple of instruments, very light, very quiet. It feels more personal, where the last movement was larger in scale. It makes me wonder where the next track is going to go, because I do see this relationship between these two movements here. I keep interchanging track and movement. I just need to stick with the word movements here. But I see the relationship, and I wonder if this is going to be something that we see progressing through here. It doesn't really make sense, in particular, if this is film score, and I would assume that there's filmic elements that happen between these different sections of this suite. But there's certainly connection here. And I like that. But we've also taken something that was very high energy and brought it down. We're looking at something quite a bit lighter here. We have something that also moves from 4/4 to 3/4. Boom, 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 boom. And we have, I think it was a cello, just boom, boom, boom on beat 1 of every bar, just giving us this nice pulse at the bottom of it all, which also feels very waltzy. I don't think it'll be unexpected if, when we get to movement 5, Waltz, that rhythmically we're going to capture some of the stuff we're feeling here. In fact, it might even be cool to revisit some of the musical ideas we have in this track, this movement, and recontextualize them, or simply just bring them back as a bit of theming. But generally, I love the delicacy of this track. I think that's the second time this month I've done that. The delicate elements. I don't know why I always want to turn delicate into delicacy. Is that linguistically accurate? I don't think so. And I think delicate, anyways, getting off topic here. The delicate element of it, it's the simple rising and falling articulation. It's the rising and falling energy too. The volume rises and swells and comes back down. I think that's just gorgeous. It allows the song to have character and body and movement to it, while still just kind of being one melodic idea. What the violins are playing, that doesn't really change much on this track. It's fairly consistent. The rhythmic element for sure is the same throughout, but it still has pacing and flow because of the dynamic composition to it. It's a very cool other side of the coin to movement 1. I like seeing how the two of these are related in some ways and completely different in others. This next movement then is Acrobats. Let's see what they do with this. I'm kind of surprised that one ended when it did. It felt like it was supposed to be long. I don't know. The other ones felt longer too. So I don't know. I don't have much to add to this one though. I think it's a fun, bouncy 4/4 with a heavy emphasis on 2 and 4. Gives it a very dancey vibe. And funny enough, it's more of a popular kind of dance, like a bunch of people coming together to dance rather than something practiced and rehearsed, like movement 2, where I kind of envision that as more ballet. This is more just like what we would have today as a club, but I don't think the type of dancing would be very modern here. This feels a bit older, but still group public dancing kind of stuff is what I get on this, which is interesting because acrobats, oh no, acrobats are kind of more like ballet dancers. They have a routine, they rehearse it. There's a lot of technical elements. There's physical strain. It really requires someone who knows what they're doing and doing everything safely. It's interesting then that this is the song that would have been picked, or at least the way I envision it, doesn't really match up with my idea of what acrobats do. Hmm. It is a bit stripped back though, much like the second movement, and I'm kind of curious about that. Because to me, acrobats would be a pretty major thing. Kind of would want a more bombastic song to go with that. And I was right. Intermezzo is Italian for interlude. So it makes sense that that track or that movement would have been a bit more muted. So again, I'm kind of wondering why this one was a bit lower on energy and less bombastic than movement 1. Hmm. There is a lot of cool syncopation in here, though, from the drum kit, but also from the piano. The rhythm section is presenting a lot of the cool rhythmic elements on this one, and it is what makes it feel so upbeat and dancey. But aside from that, it kind of lines up in a lot of ways with the previous movement. A bit quieter and delicate, but this one, rather than being so perfectly pristine, this one feels a bit looser, vibrant. And I think that's why it's when I think of it, for some reason, I still think of a dance. It's a bit more of a looser, less practiced dance, more about letting your body react to the music around you rather than rehearsing a specific set of movements. But I don't have much else to add to that one. It's an interesting comparison to movement 2, but as a whole, I think I have less understanding of where this fits within the entire suite, at least at this point. Let's move into the fourth movement then. This one's called In Hospital. That that was peculiar. I really liked the beginning because you had that quicker, more staccato kind of thing over here, but off on the left, there's more legato, these longer held out notes. Granted, there is, I believe, a pizzicato violin in there, these very light plucks of the string. And I tried to represent that with the conducting too, very light, delicate movements rather than, the big hand chops I like to use. And I just, the whole thing felt small, but contrasting. We had this more, this moving idea that's been pretty consistent throughout this entire suite. These faster ideas and staccato performance, shorter notes, and this over here, this is new, this is fresh, and it's not brought in by itself. It's contrasted with the old. I really liked that combination there. Of course, though, we ended up taking this faster idea and expanding it, not just focusing an entire section of this movement around it, not just bringing in other instruments to support this sound and to make it louder, but also to speed it up. We have an accelerando here, raising the temperature, raising the tempo over time. And it ends up feeling very almost bombastic. It doesn't quite get there, but it feels like it's trying to ramp back up to where the suite began. I'm curious what the purpose of that is too. And, it just dawned on me again, I'm trying to understand all of these movements as a singular whole, and maybe that's not how they were designed. Again, these could all be for different scenes in a film. But it is interesting to view the elements that are consistent, that do contrast nicely, how each of these seems to be reflected in the next somehow. This was also, I believe, the quietest movement in this suite so far, and I found that to be a really nice moment. We've kind of been inching for quieter and quieter ever since the opening, the title movement. I think this is our lowest point. It wouldn't surprise me if we're going to wrap this up on a larger note. However, that also makes sense. I don't know why I said however. It makes sense if this is the final movement or the final piece in the film too, to be a big moment. So it actually makes perfect sense for this final movement called Waltz to push in that direction. I did like, though, again, how the end of this track brings the energy back down, though. This one ends up feeling fun in a different way, though, because it's this rising and falling action. It's the contrast. It's the synergy between all of it. The other ones are fun more in harmony, in rhythm. They represent funner ideas musically, but this is fun in how it's presented. It is just, I put a smile on my face when the crescendo came in and the volume steadily rose while more instruments were packed into this. We got sort of a very bright, vibrant version of this violin line that was kind of paired with something a bit heavier just a moment ago with that legato piano work over here. It's just a fun movement and adaptation of a musical idea. But much like Acrobats, I'm not sure I get in a hospital vibe from this movement. The title of it doesn't really match the sound for me, but maybe there's extra context to it. We'll figure that out in a moment. We have a couple more minutes ahead of us here. Let's check out this final movement, Waltz. I'll give some thoughts on that. Go look up what's going on with this Clowns und Kinder thing as a whole. Does it come from a film? What's the film about? What's the film's tone? Kind of see if I can't get a better understanding of what Alfred is trying to achieve with this suite. But for now, Waltz. I'm going to take a moment, rewind this back real quick. I can't remember if that was movement 2 or 3. I said 3, and then I second guessed myself for some reason. Yeah, okay, so it was 2. That melody. Didn't I call it though? I said, hey, this is in 3/4, kind of feels waltzy. We'll probably see this theme showing up in Waltz. Yeah, dude, I called it. And we did see an element of theme and variation here, bringing that melody back in a slightly different way. The timbres of the instruments are different between the two, but there's also different things happening around it. Whereas Intermezzo felt a bit muted and personal. This one feels like it captures a bit of that larger energy of the title music without ever really getting to that bombastic element. This one certainly does feel larger and more present. Other than that, there's a couple of new lines that support it, but overall, I don't really think there's too much that's changed here. It's basically more of a reprise of this idea than a complete variation on this melody. So I don't really have much to add to this other than I think that it's neat to hear a fuller version, though I think personally I do enjoy Intermezzo better than Waltz. I just really like that intimate vibe there and sort of the delicate element of it. Let me see what I can find about this suite. We'll talk about that for a second, then we'll wrap this video up. There's nothing I can find on this. Wikipedia lists Schnittke writing this for the film that was directed by Alexander Mitsa, a Russian director and screenwriter. But funny enough, on Alexander's Wikipedia page, it doesn't list that as in his filmography at all, which could just mean that maybe he's a lesser known director and his Wikipedia page is just incomplete. But the Internet Movie Database doesn't have anything about this director at all, and nothing about any film called Clowns and Children or Clowns und Kinder. So I couldn't find anything about this, and searching for it, I was hoping maybe someone had put it on YouTube. And the only thing that Clowns und Kinder brings up is Roblox games with clowns for kids. So I've had no luck with this at all. So unfortunately, I can't use any extra context to kind of figure out what this suite is trying to do, or maybe where these songs show up or movements show up within the film to ascertain if maybe there's something there. But I did find some neat parallels in here, and I did enjoy these rather short movements. They have enough depth to them generally without reaching the point of being too long. They are, I think, at times too short, but they're fleshed out enough that I can forgive it, I suppose. But also it's part of a multimedia project, and I didn't experience it through that. So it's possible the length is even less of a question when presented in the film itself. These are my thoughts then. Alfred Schnittke's Clowns und Kinder. What did you think of this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, opinion, or perspective on this? Please put all of that, as well as anything else you'd like to add, into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.